everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. And joining me this time, we have some CSGO royalty, a man who recently has found life on the bench, but of course has been ubiquitous with fnatic, with the early days of CSGO, tons of success, an all-round future Hall of Famer. It is, of course, JW, the Wonder Child. Thanks a lot for joining me, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, even though I'm not really a child anymore.
No, a man, a 26-year-old man.
Wonder Man, maybe.
Well, look, I mean, you know, it is true. Time has moved on, and we're all getting older and stuff. But you've still got some good years in the tank at 26, right? I mean,
yeah, I think so, definitely. I think I'm this kind of guy who kind of wants to battle these arguments that there is like an age limit or whatever in CS or esports in general. I mean, Forrest is obviously battling it pretty good himself, but I think the older these, like my kind of generation will be, I think we're gonna see that the age, it's just a number really. It's all about the motivation and if you're willing to put in the work. And I mean, I can understand that argument about the age from before, because let's say 1.6, you could earn like $500 a month or whatever, and suddenly you have kids and the family to take care of, and suddenly it's not enough. But like in CS now, I think you can make a pretty good living for a long time. That's gonna show that age is just a number, really, I think.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you know, your development as a player and kind of where you find yourself now. You know, as I just said, you have been benched by fnatic, and obviously being benched is never easy. It's essentially an indictment of your ability to either play within the team or just play the game to the required level in general. So it's never a nice feeling. Has this been a blow to your confidence? Because obviously fnatic is very dear to your heart. You've been with them for most of your professional career, and kind of to find yourself, you know, not needed anymore, essentially. How have the wheels been turning about that?
I think actually I had like a pretty good amount of time kind of knowing it coming, I guess. So like when it came, it wasn't really a shock or anything, and I have kind of already processed it in my mind. But of course, when you finally get like the decision, it kind of hurts, and I think I got kind of lost in myself and everything. Like, okay, what am I now? What am I without fnatic? What should I do? Because it's not really that common, I guess, that you have played for pretty much one organization in your year long career. So I felt pretty lost and started to think like, what can I do? Maybe I can stay in fnatic, maybe I can go over to Valorant, or maybe I can do something like that, you know. But yeah, I don't think it hit my confidence that much. I would say I was pretty much at the rock bottom just before anyway, so it was only up from there, kind of, I guess.
So why were you at rock bottom? What was impacting on your confidence? Was it just assessing your own performance, or were there other factors?
Yeah, I think I mean it was a lot of different factors this year. I mean, finishing off last year, I think I had one of my best performances ever in Flashpoint.
Yeah.
And then moving into this new year, when we were making the changes, I got the call that like, yeah, we have signed a new offer from Sweden, and we wanna try that route and put you on a rifle role. And there I was like, I mean, I have just started to feel like really confident with op again. I felt like the way I'm working is really consistent, and I think that was kind of a huge blow to my confidence. And I think it was the first time in my career where I kind of said like, I don't really want to do this. I want to keep opping. I think I have a good thing going on right now. I really want to do that and keep doing that. I mean, I'm usually the kind of guy who do everything for the team, but this time around I took like kind of a selfish decision, I guess. And yeah, we had some discussions back and forth, and they decided to give me like a 3-month trial on the op role. And I think like back there it made perfect sense to me, but like with the result in hand, I think I couldn't handle that pressure really. It just started to mess with my mind overall, and we started to look like how should you play with the op. You should adjust these things during this like 3-month period, and in the end I kind of lost the JW vibe that made me the opper that I've always been, and I just got lost. And then also in the team we had like Jacquinho. I mean, he's a great player, but he has always been a rifler in his career, and now suddenly he's gonna go like to the tier 1 from, I don't know, he's been in the Swedish scene only pretty much, and now you're gonna put him on a rifle. I mean, that's also really not gonna work, I guess. So I think it was kind of lined up to fail, the whole thing, to be honest, from the beginning of the year.
When you say these decisions were being made, because I agree. I mean, listen, you know, I know you watch by the numbers, and we talk obviously, so you know, I've been critical of your performances. I'm not gonna hide away from that. But I actually thought coming out of Flashpoint, I agree. I think it's the best I think I've seen you play since, like, you know, the good old days. And so for you to suddenly find yourself being demoted essentially, and I've also tried explaining this to a number of people, that people are telling me, no, Chiquinho's an AWPer, he's an AWPer. I'm like, no, he is a rifler. He's been a rifler all his career, and now he's an AWPer. And they seem to be doing this not based on his skill, but based on a lack of confidence in JW. People tell me I'm wrong. I'm glad you've confirmed that for me. But, you know, who's making all these decisions? Is it a team decision? Is it the IGL? Is it the managers? You know, who's making the call to make you play rifle?
This time, like, it usually has been like a team decision, but this time around with the whole flasher benching and all that, it was mostly like a management combined with the IGL kind of decision. So that also is kind of a change of route, I guess, within the team that we took more like going into this year. I mean, not that us as players like has nothing to say about stuff, but I think before we have usually had like kind of a more saying, I guess, in stuff. But I understand that you want to move away from that because you don't really want to be dependent on the players. But it's kind of the philosophy that we have always had, and I think we moved away from it now. And I think it kind of showed as well that it didn't really work, especially not for me, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting because this interview, and we didn't plan it this way, obviously, it coincides with another interview with Golden, you know, over on HLTV. And he was saying, you know, talking about how he was disappointed with the project and how it turned out, and that, you know, this team never really seemed to kind of click in the way he would have wanted it to after Flusher left. And, you know, I've got to ask you, there was like a weird situation where Golden just seemed to disappear, and you know, the team kind of started to like break up, and I was like scratching my head as to why it was happening. There were rumors, you know, being circulated that Golden had literally just logged off one day and disappeared and hadn't said anything to the team about it. And, you know, to people like us, you know, looking in, it looked like the team had all sorts of trouble. Now, Golden doesn't make reference to any of that, but is that an accurate perception? You know, did the team have big problems and fundamental disagreements about its direction, or was it just a lack of form that was driving the problems?
I mean, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. Of course, we had like, I think, like a lot of problems, and we worked super hard. Like, I think this period of time is like the hardest a fnatic CSGO team has ever worked in its iteration. But the problem was, we fixed one issue, 2 new issues arrived. We fixed those 2 issues, and suddenly, you know, 2 more issues arrive, and you fix those, and then the first issue comes back, and like it was all these issues just haunting us, and we kept like trying to fix them, but nothing really clicked. And eventually it was like, I think we started to overthink everything. We kind of needed to have like rules, like whatever situation we end up in, we need to have like one rule in our head, like this is how we're gonna play it, and that doesn't really fit us either. So I think like all these problems eventually just led us to digging a hole so deep that nobody could get out of it. And combined with that, also like I hit my biggest slump ever. Not really lying about that, and I think nobody in the team like had a prime performance either. So it was a combination of everything in my eyes.
Yeah. Also, as well, Golden did say that it was the online era had really negatively impacted on you guys, because it felt like when you were playing, other people were playing differently to the style that you were accommodated to facing, and essentially adopted aspects that Fnatic were very good at. Suddenly everyone was doing Fnatic things online, and that made it harder for you guys to kind of come up with a winning system. How do you feel about those comments? Is there any accuracy to those?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have always been the kind of team who, you know, when we walk into a stage, we see that crowd. That's like when our performance go up like 20% or something, and others' performance maybe go down 10% or something. So I definitely think the COVID affected us heavily as well. I mean, I used to be kind of one of a kind playing on all these tournaments, and then suddenly there's like 4 JWs in every game. So I definitely think it affected us a lot more than people think.
Yeah, and you know, look, you guys really were plummeting, you know, down the world rankings during the online era, which, you know, look, I'm sympathetic. I've said, you know, because again, I'm from the world of Source. Online CS, you're going to get some bullshit, whether it's people using graphic cards to, you know, remove smokes, or stuff like the coaching bug, which we might talk about a little bit later on. But ultimately, it felt to me that there was something else going on with Fnatic, because best will in the world, you should never have dropped to like 60th in the world rankings. I mean, that was like an insane decline with the players that you had. Were you guys ever worried about like just coming in one day and them saying, you know, we're gonna cut the entire team? Because there were rumors circulating at one point, sure, from highly dubious leak accounts, but there were rumors that, you know, Fnatic were even looking at maybe picking up that Polish roster that was out there, and you know, they were maybe looking for a fresh start.
I don't think like we were ever worried about that. I mean, we kind of knew that if things doesn't change, or like if we doesn't start to perform, of course somebody or more is gonna get cut. But I think I never really expected a total revamp. I like, sure, I had some ideas that maybe they want to go international, even though I'm not sure if it's the right route, but that I had in mind. But like a player like Crims, a player like Brawl, and I knew that you're not gonna get rid of those two, especially. It's insane players, and they have so much more to give.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you say that, you know, there was all these changes going on, did you foresee a world where you might be included? I mean, because, you know, look, I suspect that there have been issues with Golden, and you know, maybe some fractious discussions around who does what in the team. You know, when changes looked like they were gonna occur, I mean, you know, was there a part of your brain thinking, well, look, I mean, if we make the changes, they have to keep JW around, right? I mean, like, I am Fnatic. I've been here for, you know, for most, you know, for like 7 years of my playing career.
I don't really think. I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, you have been critical of my performance, and plenty of people have, and but what they don't realize is probably that like the biggest criticism of my own performance is myself. I always hold my performance like I take responsibility basically, and Yeah, I've known for a long time that I've underperformed heavily, and trying to fix that. Things didn't click. I couldn't play like my way, or like, yeah, a lot of things just didn't click, I guess. And I think at one point I even like asked the management, like, am I even gonna be allowed to play the next tournament, because that's how horrible it was. So I never at any point during this like last 6 months or so felt safe in any way. And even going back to like the beginning of the year, I think when I took this kind of selfish decision saying I don't want to step down from the op role, like even after that, I don't think I felt super safe. I think it was like my time to be the next, I guess. Maybe it wasn't like that, but yeah, as I said, I'm very critic to myself as well. So
what do you think has led to the drop in form for you? Because, you know, there's one narrative out there which you can make a compelling argument for, and that is that you just happen to be very unlucky as a player, because every aspect to your play style seems to have been changed within the game. So by that, I mean, obviously going right the way back to the CZ nerfs, you were known for being able to just pull that gun out if you missed an up shot and pop somebody's head off. And then they changed the AWP, and then you end up with, you know, all sorts of economic changes, and also as well, I mean, you know, being an AWPer, having to play through the Krieg meta, that wasn't particularly fun. So, you know, you end up in a world where actually, you know, you could just say, my playstyle was essentially nerfed every fucking time there was a major update in CS. Do you feel that way, or is it a bit more like, you know, yeah, look, I just sort of just wasn't up to code?
I think I don't really feel that way. I'm more like I try to understand like why stuff are happening and stuff like that. And I think like the harsh reality is probably that I just didn't stay up with the meta good enough. I think I was too stubborn. Even if those changes came or whatever, like I tried to, as good as I could, implement my meta into those changes. But I think like with the knowledge I have today, I would probably like take a step back and okay, I have to scratch this and start from over with like a new meta or whatever. But I've always been kind of a stubborn player, and I think it's also what brought me here today. Like everything I have achieved is also due to my stubbornness. So I can't really blame that either. But I think I've never in my career felt like I'm unlucky or whatever. I always feel like it's still always up to me. I see myself as a very talented Counter-Strike player or talented FPS player overall. And I should definitely like handle the metas way better than I have had, I think.
So, I mean, let's just talk a little bit as well about obviously the online era, you know, because of the ongoing issues with the pandemic, we've essentially had to, you know, change the way we do Counter-Strike for, it'll be coming up to 2 years in a few months. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that's gone on in that time that's certainly called question on a number of competitive integrity issues. We'll talk about them individually, but first, I mean, you're a very experienced player. You're a player that's been accused of cheating in the past yourself. You're a player that sort of lived through a time when the game was so fucking broken at the start. There were a number of bugs and exploits in it that were being used in online play. What's your overall trust levels of the past 2 years in terms of competition? I mean, do you feel that these results are reflective of everyone's ability, or do you think actually there probably is some cause to maybe question some of the things that have been going on?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's really hard to trust people these days, especially with everything that's coming out and keep coming out. And I think it also like kind of hurts me a little bit because, as you said, sure, people have thought about us cheating or stuff like that in the past. But I think during like these 2 years, we have been pretty much at least one of the only teams that have never like tried to break any rules whatsoever when it comes to like having the coach in the room, for example. I mean, during I think it was the Flashpoint major, there was these rules that the coach can't be in the room. You can't have any communication with anyone except the 5 players. I mean, we respected that super heavily. And then you look in the stream and you see like NIP and other teams, like, what do? Okay, in the half break, then they all run to the toilet instead. And what can they do like on their way to the toilet? Of course, they can talk to their coach. They can talk to like anybody on their way to the toilet. And like, we never did such things. But I think everyone, or a lot of people during this online period, tried to find all these loopholes, how to get like an advantage and all of that. And sure, people might see that of us, but I think we have been pretty honest guys during this period, to be honest. And yeah, it kind of saddens me that so many at least try to find all these loopholes in the rules.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the coaching bug. Obviously, it's doubly sad because obviously we haven't just seen people using what is essentially a wall hack. You know, it's only a partial wall hack, sure, but you know, for those that don't know, one of the bugs and exploits that you had in earlier iterations of this game, and definitely in Source before the invention of Z-Block, was you could make walls, doors, boxes, you could make them transparent. And while it didn't mean you could see everybody, it's of course an advantage if someone's in a defensive position. And so it was with the coach bug. And so, you know, I really do agree with you in the sense that there's just been so much shit going on now. It is hard to kind of trust anything that goes on again, and we're still feeling the fallout from that. So, I mean, what was your reaction to the coach bug when it was all happening? Because obviously there are a number of people that you know that have kind of been indicted in all of this.
Like, my first reaction was like, I don't know, I guess I was just in a shock, especially for like how long it has been been around, first of all. But I also like, I have heard some like small rumors or something before about it, that it could potentially be there. And then I guess around the same time I heard those rumors, I think they started to investigate it. So I was maybe a little bit prepared. But yeah, it was a huge shock really. And in the way some of these guys have abused it as well. Yeah, Heroic is the biggest example, I guess. I think it's just so saddening, really. And I don't think people understand as well, like how big of a thing it actually is, especially in the pro scene. Like, for example, when Heroic played Astralis and Hunden could have like this camera above the whole banana, like that does so much in pro CS. Like, you can know exactly how many is there, and it's such a big thing, especially in CS where rotation is everything. Like, the IGL's job is basically to find out where they are rotating and how you can abuse it. And then you have somebody sitting like in some watchtower looking. So I got shocked really. And then afterwards, I guess you kind of felt just ashamed because like I'm a big part of this as well. And I have tried to build this for the past 8 years or whatever, to maybe not like hit the mainstream. I don't care about mainstream, but like so that at least we ourselves can be proud of each other. And I think the way people have like handled this and all that, I don't think we can say that we should be proud of each other, to be honest.
No, I mean, what did you think of the punishments that were handed out? Because, you know, it's kind of like, it seemed to me that there were very different reactions from the community depending on who the people were. You know, for example, crazy as it seems now, people seemed willing to give Hunden a second chance because, you know, he came out and said, yeah, I did it in these games. I've worked with the people looking at the demos, and I'll cooperate with ESIC. And, you know, and everyone went, all right then. And Heroic said, we're going to keep him on. Something I'm sure in retrospect they wish they hadn't done. But obviously as well, I mean, like, you know, the Gambit coach is banned, I believe, for life from the majors, based on his use of it. And that doesn't seem to be a big deal. I saw everybody praising Guerry the other day for his ability to play in a game. And yet, you know, people from the less popular teams seem to get absolutely slammed. And I don't know, it seems to me to be a very strange reaction. So I guess, do you feel the ban should have been longer? do you think the ESIC bans were soft? What do you think about being banned from majors?
I haven't really thought too much about the bans, but I agree with you. Like, I think it's a general problem we have in CS, especially that people are very short-sighted. Like, they love drama and they love to stir things up, but they're gonna forget it like in 2-3 days, and they're gonna love the guy they hated 2 days ago, right?
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to the punishments, I'm not sure if I would have wanted to see them harder or softer or whatever, but I at least would have loved to see them being respected and not like heroic, for example, as it's talked about loopholes. I mean, yeah, okay, we're gonna have him as an analyst during this time as well. Like, if he had screwed up this bad and is like, this is his punishment, don't involve him. Like, let him actually sit out his punishment. I think that's my only take on it, that at least let these guys who got the punishment sit out their punishment. Don't try to fit them into other roles or whatever, because they have cheated on the game. Don't let them keep working in the game during this punishment period, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have a kind of like broader perspective on it? Because obviously one of the famous incidents in CS history is Boostgate with fnatic, and you know, I mean, listen, I don't want to compare it to using the coaching bug and keeping it secret, because it isn't the same. But I've always been of the opinion, and I know this isn't the popular opinion, but I've always been of the opinion that actually that is tantamount to cheating. That, you know, it was essentially an unintended bug or an exploit in the game that created a discrepancy in fair play. Most people, I think, are of the opinion that fnatic did nothing wrong. So, I mean, obviously, as somebody that's been in a position where you've been initially demonized for cheating, it wasn't, but whatever. You know, do you feel perhaps a little bit of sympathy towards some of the hate mobs that are rising up now, or do you think it's warranted?
I mean, of course, I have some sympathy, but I also think maybe I sound a bit like a hypocrite, but I also think like it comes down to how has it been done. Like, let's say one guy, I mean, Robban, for example, he got stuck in this position, and I mean, he's a boomer. He doesn't understand what he would do in this situation. He just sit there, watch his team lose 14-1 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get put in that situation one time, like, you can say that it wasn't your meaning or whatever. I mean, I can have sympathy with that, but one guy trying to get into like a better position game after game or whatever, like, then I have zero sympathy. So yeah, maybe it's a bit hypocrite, but I think it should be kind of a case by case review kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, I'll move us on, because you know, there's other stuff that's been going on in the online kind of era. It feels like we've lurched from, you know, one drama to another. I'm glad that you picked up on this idea of, you know, coaching and everything else. You know, that's not meant to be happening. The coaching bug essentially forced Valve's hand. They had to say, right, coaches can't be trusted. It's not just one or two here. It's like 37. So we now at Valve events, no coach involvement in real time. But I agree. I've seen in other tournaments, you know, the Blast had an incident with Vitality, for example. You've got just an entourage in there with the players. And I've said, like, guys, like, this is really fucking dangerous. And ESIC only deemed that to be worthy of a $10,000 fine, even though people are in there with mobile phones. They could be looking at anything there, right? I mean, I'm not saying Vitality are cheats, obviously, but I mean, we have to do more to protect the integrity of the game, surely, because this entire online era, you can point to little incidents like that, where it only takes one dishonest player or one dishonest manager or one dishonest coach, and you affect the outcome of the whole tournament.
Yeah, I definitely think I think they did a way better job at events. For example, after that Vitality kind of thing. I mean, now you kind of have to put up cameras around the whole room, so you can show the admins like what's actually going on in the room. So I think that part have gotten better. But yeah, I also think that's also one of those things where I don't really see a reason to why. Like, why do you need all these guys behind you? Or I can understand it to some extent, I guess, if you have this mental coach and all that. But in the end, to me, it's CS, man. Like, play the game like back in the days, you know. Play the game. We don't need 10 15 guys around every team to function. And I think that's my take, honestly. I think we are in a time where you just put up positions in a CS team because maybe it's like that in sports or whatever. So you just fill up a team with a bunch of guys, but in the end you don't really know what their purpose is, and you don't know how to execute it properly, I think. But that's just life right now. We want to be sports, but we aren't, kind of.
Yeah, we're not. We're definitely not.
Yeah.
We try, but unfortunately, it's just because it doesn't have the same money or resources. It's very hard to police a lot of the stuff that goes on. I personally think it's a real dangerous time for us to be essentially, having all these integrity issues, because if fans lose the ability to believe that the games are genuine and that people aren't cheating, and there is a groundswell now of what was like a lunatic fringe conspiracy theory that, everyone was using cheats, and everyone in Fnatic was cheating, and everyone in Astralis are cheating, and everyone in Luminosity were cheating, and Valve know, and I know, and you know, and we all cover it up so we can make money. That was being pushed out as being like ridiculous because, no one was getting banned or caught doing anything. Having stuff like this not only gives those lunatics something to point at and say, see, we told you so, even though they didn't tell us that. But it does encourage fans to, I think, walk away from the game, because it just feels like, well, if I can't believe in it, what am I doing here? And there are so many other games out there that you can go and watch that doesn't have these recurring problems.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a great point as well that, I mean, you can put it to anything really. Like, why should we trust this now? Because you couldn't trust this thing back then. I mean, we're just, and that's like what I touched on before as well when I talked about being proud of what we have built. Like, we're just ruining it for ourselves and the industry as a whole, for nothing really. Like, to win one extra online game or whatever, and it's, if you can't handle that loss or whatever, then I guess you're doing something wrong. You should never have that urge to cheat because of one online map or whatever, I think. Then it just ruins the scene as a whole, and it's really saddening.
And of course, we've got Valorant lurking, right? I mean, that's the big game that's kind of ending up as, on the one hand, in the CS community, it's a bit of a meme because it's like the player's retirement home. No matter how bad things get, you can just go to Valorant. But on the other hand, I think every time, and I know this from having covered other games, when you start seeing people announcing, I'm off to play this game, you might go, oh, okay, well, it's only a guy who's 32, so it's all right. Or it's only a guy that hasn't been very good for a while. But eventually you start seeing more and more of these headlines, and it creates a perception that actually this is the new hotness, this is the new cool thing to go and do. And so kids who might have engaged with CS, they think, well, fuck it. All the cool people are over here now. That's where I'm going to go. We'll talk a little bit about you and Valorant in a moment. But first of all, what do you think of the game Valorant as an existential threat to CSGO?
I think it's a big threat. I think it's a way bigger threat than people realize, really. And I think the biggest threat to me, especially, is the easiness, like how accessible the game is. What I love during my month or whatever of playing Valorant is like you can always load up the game and you can play and you can have a good game. But in CS, it's like, first of all, let's say you're a new player, you're going to CS, you queue up matchmaking. Okay, you're gonna have like 5 cheaters in the game to begin with. You're gonna quit the game. You're probably not gonna play anymore that day. but then eventually maybe you find out like, oh, okay, you have to play like Face It, you have to play ECA, like you need to have a third party thing to be able to enjoy the game. I think that first of all is like the biggest issue. And then second of all, I think like the scenes are, I mean, sure, there's a lot of toxicness, I guess, in the Valorant scene as well, but I don't really I don't really see these hate waves as much. Maybe I'm just like not too into it, but like a lot of people, they support the pro player streams and the content they create and all that. And in CS, it's also like it's a lot about the memes, honestly. If you want to be top of the Reddit, you gotta be a meme. It's not about actually having like really good content or whatever. If you meme, you're gonna be at the top. And I think those two kind of things is the biggest threats. We're in CS overall, we're way too harsh, like on the players not hitting a shot or whatever. Like you're gonna see 10 million guys spamming that in the chat, making fun of you and all that. So yeah, but the easiness and accessibility of the games, like if CS had what Valorant has when it comes to matchmaking and the ranked system and the anti-cheat system, nothing could touch CS, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about the fundamental differences between Valve and Riot. And I know it's hard for players to criticize Valve. I mean, what I've found is that you just can do it and they're not like Riot or Blizzard. They don't get upset. They just understand criticism comes with the territory, which is why out of all the games developers I've had to interact with, I do have a preference towards Valve, even though I think they're shitting the bed as it comes to CSGO right now in the face of a threat like Valorant. But do you wish, Valve were a bit more involved and engaged at this time? Or do you think that's like really overplayed and actually, Valve are doing an okay job? It's just that, Riot Games are maybe doing a slightly better one.
I think what's really important to remember here is that Valorant is new, right? They have to listen to the community. And like, let's be honest, CSGO listened a lot to the community in the beginning as well, because you have to in a new game. But I think now, in my opinion, I think Valve is pretty scared in what they should do, because as you said, like they have Valorant as a big threat. If they do some like tweak wrong or whatever, like, okay, they won't kill the game, but I think it would affect them way more now than maybe it would have done before. So I think right now they're very cautious with what they're trying to do. And honestly, I prefer Valve, and I prefer Valve's way of doing things. And I don't necessarily think Riot is better or anything, but I think people forget that Riot is like in the startup phase right now, where they have to listen to the community, because else they won't ever get a chance. And CS is so old now, and they have already had that startup period. Like they had like 2013, where they listen a lot to the community, and people seem to forget that. But yeah, I think they're scared and very cautious right now, and hopefully they're working on something big, but you never know. And
you do never know.
That's what you kind of love with Valve as well, right?
They are. It's called Steam Deck. That's what they're working on. It's tough. I mean, I'm of the opinion, I've said it many times now. I think Valorant's already won, not by virtue of Riot being a better company. They're not by virtue of Valorant being a better game physically. It isn't. But the reality is Riot understand what works in an esports context. They're willing to sit down with stakeholders, from commentators to players to team owners to sponsors, that are all interested in esports working. And so because of that, the fact that Valve is so hands off, it's essentially a surrender. And so I think in 2 years, I think Valorant's kicking CS's ass.
Yeah, and I also forgot to mention, like, a huge part that Valorant wins on is they just have attackers and defenders, while in CS we have this terrorist, counter-terrorist kind of thing, and that's a huge no-go for a lot of sponsors, a lot of teams, and that's something I also see as, like, it's such a small tweak you could do to CS that honestly you wouldn't lose any player on it. You could only gain by changing it to attacker and defender or whatever. Sure, we don't really want to adjust for the mainstream and all that, but I think for the game's healthiness in the long run, I think it's a needed change. and it does nothing to the current players. Like honestly, zero. And that's also a huge win for Valorant, I think.
So with that said, I know when you were benched, you did say, yeah, you know, listen, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say the word. I'm going to play Valorant for a while and see if I like it. And, you know, you did some streams and everything. Just to be clear, because I know we talked about it before the show, you are going to stick in CS. But why didn't you make the transition of Valorant if you enjoy the game?
So I enjoyed playing Valorant a lot. And as I said earlier, I think I was kind of lost during this timeline in what is actually next for me. I have been on the same spot for 8 years or whatever. Maybe it's time to a huge revamp, do something totally new. But I guess I kind of just woke up one day feeling that I'm not gonna give up on my legacy in CS yet. I'm not finished by no means, and this is more of a wake up call and kick in the ass than anything. Like I'm not gonna see this as a downfall or whatever. It's just the start of a new chapter to me, and I'm hella excited again, and I really wanna prove to the world and especially to myself that this past especially 9 months or so it's not really me. It's not what is gonna define my career. Hopefully what is gonna define my career is what's coming next. So yeah, I made a decision to stick to CS, and yeah, we'll see what happens if it's like an opportunity within a team or if I have to create my own team kind of again. I mean, my last team lasted 8 years, so I would say I'm pretty good at building teams as well.
Sure. It's a scary time to be doing this though, right? Because of the economics in CS. You know, we're seeing a lot of organizations walk away from the game, saying it's simply not profitable. You know, there's no North American options now. I mean, if we're talking a few years ago, you just go to NA and you just become the king of North America. You know, it's like, it's easy. You know, it's like, not now. This is like, maybe Cloud9 are going to come back and there's Team Liquid. And then that's about it, really. Because I know EG, they're trying, bless them. But yeah, I don't see that lasting much longer, honestly. It seems a bit silly at the moment. So, you know, making your own team. I mean, you've seen your old pal Flusher go off and do it with Gorillas. And he said he had offers and orgs and everything. And it's like, you know, it's hard. MSL's doing it. You know, he's off with South, as it's called. You know, I think people making their own teams are going to have to wait a long time for an org to pick them up. So aren't you a little bit afraid about like casting yourself out there and maybe having to play with no salary again?
Both yes and no. I mean, I've never really been in it for the money. Of course, I need to make a living, but money has never really been a motivator to me, and it's not a key decision for me. Like if I can make a certain amount of money in Valorant or whatever, then I'll go there instead. It's not about that. So of course it's a bit scary, but yeah, I've been in the same situation now for 8 years or whatever. I think that's kind of also what could be my strength in organizations. I mean, I haven't tried around in a lot of mixed teams or whatever. You would essentially bank on a guy who has been in the same team for 8 years. I think it could be pretty good odds for an organization wanting to enter CS or whatever. But yeah, I think it won't really be an issue to me. And also, like, if I would be creating my own team, I would probably create a Swedish team and not an international one. So then I would probably try to work mostly with Swedish sponsors, try to make Swedish CS great again, right? So
yeah, you get the blue and yellow baseball caps.
Exactly.
Very popular.
But no, I'm not really scared about it, honestly. I'm mostly excited. I think it's gonna be, sure, it might be a tough journey, but I'm hella excited.
Yeah, I mean, the other question off that, of course, is, it sounds like you may be set on making your own team. Have you had any offers? Have any teams like been sniffing around, expressing an interest about bringing you in yet? I mean, can you?
Yeah,
You don't have to name them or anything if you don't want to.
yeah, it's been some teams, but it hasn't really been the kind of teams in the level where I feel satisfied enough to like jump on an existing team, if it makes sense. If I were to go down a few tires, then I might as well just make my own team and do it from scratch, because that's kind of how I see it, and I guess that's the vision I have as well. But I'm also like, I don't really feel any stress either. I understand that the way the game is right now, and I mean, it just came off a break as well, so most lineups are set, and I know I have a lot of things to work on individually, and I will just take the time that I have and hopefully be ready when the time comes, whatever it be.
It's also got to be said, and I don't know if this is a possibility. You're technically still, under contract with Fnatic. You're benched. If that team needs to maybe change it up and maybe swap Chiquinho out. Now, as it happens, I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying that obviously, he had a couple of series at ESL Pro League where, the Na'Vi one in particular, where he had a real rough game. Seems to have bounced back. So good for him. But I mean, is the door open that, have they said to you, listen, if we need to make a change, we'll bring you back, or has that not been discussed yet?
That hasn't been discussed at all, and I don't really think so either, to be honest. I mean, two reasons. One being that I have had a rough period lately with Fnatic, and I think the community has also kind of settled that I shouldn't be on that team anymore. And I think it would be kind of a backfire community-wise as well to try and bring me in again. And second of all, like I have no knowledge about it, but to me, Yakinyu kind of looks like kind of a placeholder, because it's not really an international team for real right now, in my eyes. I think they can't be 3 Swedes and 2 Brits. I think they're gonna have to switch up one of the Swedes, and I like know from my own experience that it should definitely not be Brawlan and Crims.
No.
So I think we're gonna see, like, this is just, to me, it's just a transitional phase for Fnatic's international lineup or whatever. So I would probably see some upcomer international opper taking a spot in instead of me, but who knows? I mean, I would definitely not be against that. I would definitely love to redeem myself, but I'm confident it's not really going to happen.
So, look, one of the things you talked about there is community reaction. So we'll talk about a topic I really wanted to get your thoughts about, because I don't think we talk enough about it. And that is essentially, what it's like to be one of these figures that gets picked out and is subject to lots of hate. Now, I know, and again, this is from knowing you for a while, again, when you first came on the scene, you had cheating allegations thrown against you. Then after that, it was the skins gambling era. And every time you lost a game, 500 salty bettors telling you to kill yourself. Then after that, people, for whatever reason, just if you lose a game in general, they focus on you. They focus on your appearance. They've compared you to farmyard animals and all sorts of shit. And then obviously recently, I imagine, and based on what I've seen as well from comments on Reddit and Twitter, when you weren't playing particularly well, you received a lot of negative comments then. Obviously, we've already talked about Boostgate. That was an outrageous amount of pitchforks that were brought out. So you have probably received more abuse than almost any other CSGO pro I know. And some of it really nasty. So I wanted to pick your brains about that and what that's like, and if you think anything can be done about it, because the one thing I always give you credit for is you've leaned into it. Someone calls you a pig, you go, yep, I'm taking all my big pig winnings to the bank. Fuck you. You know, so it's like you've shown a lot of strength under a real lot of pressure and nastiness.
Yeah, I think it never really have bothered me too much. I mean, I've always tried to look on the positive comments, or like, you know what they say, like one positive comment is worthy of like 5 negative or whatever. And I've always kind of seen it that way, and that it was easier when you were kind of successful, because haters is always gonna find those who are successful. But obviously, I think this year it got a bit rougher, especially because of the performances and all the stuff that people say. Like there's a truth to it, combined with me maybe not really feeling so safe within the team anymore. I mean, through the years, whatever people say, whatever shit people write, I know that I don't care as long as I got my team. We trust each other. Like it's us against the world, right? So I've never really had any issues with it. And if it comes to people keep doing that, let them do it. I mean, sadly though, for them, I mean, it also makes us not being taken serious many times, because like whenever you post something, 20 guys or whatever is gonna write the same joke, because it's what they do in the Twitch chat, right?
Yeah.
And then there comes like a potential sponsor wanting to come in, and let's say they look at through your Instagram or whatever, and they see like, okay, people are just posting shit here. Like, let's not take this route. So I think it's a bad thing overall, but it hasn't really affected me too
So
much.
there's never been a dark time essentially where you're like, you know, fuck, I can't do this anymore. Because, you know, I'm an old dude, but even I've had days like that where I'm just like, you know what? I just don't want to fucking do this. I just don't want to be in esports anymore. I'm sick and tired of the bullshit. Sick and tired of people spreading all this like false stuff about me and who I am because I'm like some fucking Z-list celebrity with a Twitter account. And, you know, it just, you know, you just have to fucking unplug.
Yeah, of course, it's been like super dark times. For example, the boost gate. I mean, I think that was the point where I think both me and all of Meister were probably thinking, like, when we spoke in that hotel room with the team, we were like, this is it. We're quitting. We're not gonna do this anymore. It's not worth it. Like, it's affecting us too much, and it's not really worth for us to stay, because to me it's also kind of, I see myself as kind of a showman, you know. I want people to have a good show when they watch me. I want them to enjoy the show, and I think most of the times I made people well spend their time watching me, because I always try to invite them to a show, and then all you get is like just getting shit on. Of course, it comes a point where you're feeling like, okay, is this actually for me? Is this what I'm gonna do the rest of my life? So of course there has been dark times, but I always have been too competitive as a person to be able to focus enough on that side. I just try to think about the next game I want to win, or the next title I want to win, or the next team I want to beat.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because you know, I've seen a lot of the younger players and actually players in Valorant, right? They seem to be a lot less equipped to deal with the stuff that's going on, because, you know, when you already have established fan bases and established followings a lot, and you're getting a lot of attention, you know, that hate is going to be there right from day one. It's not like back in the day with 1.6 and Source, where we built esports scenes from the ground up. So everyone was along for the ride, and the crowds weren't that big, and there was no social media and stuff like that. Now it's like, bang, you're playing in a big tournament. If you fuck up, everyone's going to kick the shit out of you on Twitter. And, you know, I mean, I just did an interview with Moses, right? Think about him. Think about how many, you know, how long he's been in this business. And he said when he got fired from Team Liquid, he went away for 2 months, didn't look at Twitter, didn't look at Reddit, didn't look at HLTV. He said, nope, no good's going to come of that. So, is there any advice that you could give to, like, young and upcoming players and how to handle the intense scrutiny and backlash you can get for things like poor performances or saying things people disagree with?
I think overall, just if you know that you are kind of weak to it, I think you should take like some distance from social media or HLTV, for example. I mean, that forum is a pain in the ass sometimes, but I like most players I know, they're anyways like if they see their name on a title, they're gonna click in on that fucking forum thread and read it. Yeah,
JW,
exactly.
come here.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're gonna click in there and read it, and then you're gonna get a bit sad or whatever. So I think just distance yourself, and overall, I think especially from the beginning, don't rely so much on social medias, because sure, I love social medias in the way that it made it possible for me to live the way I live and work, have the work I have. But on the other side, I also hate social media more than anything, because it builds up like a picture about the world and about people that is not even close to the truth. So I think distance yourself to social medias, especially from the beginning, I think is my biggest advice to the upcomers. But also realize the worthiness of social medias, I guess, because you need it to succeed as well.
Yeah. So look, the next talking point that I want to get into a little bit with you is obviously the kind of career trajectory, that you've taken. You've talked a lot about being in Fnatic, and you've been in the most successful, team at the time, and all of that. But there's one little move that I've always been intrigued about and always wanted to ask if I ever got the chance. And it's a move that hasn't really been talked about so much historically. And that was the decision when you went away and you ended up joining the Godsent roster for a while. So it's one of the most curious moves, I think, in the history of a CSGO, because this was a new organization that people didn't know too much about it, other than that it had, some backing, financially from a variety of people, including Refresh being one of them, and that it was initially the Red Reserve team that came in and all of that. But obviously you ended up there, and they had a number of prominent Fnatic legends. So I know how much you love the Fnatic brand and how much you love that, love the org and the setup there. Why at that time did you make that move to Godsent? What were the motivating factors?
So the thing is, I don't remember exactly the timelines or the years and all that, but
I can help you out. I got my notes here. I got all my little research. So
yeah. So but it was like an E-League tournament at least, and we had been, I think we've like finished second place that E-League tournament or something, and I think it was one of the first E-League tournaments, and I think it was the first time we were in a tournament for like 5 weeks or whatever. Like, I don't know how many weeks we spent in that hotel room in Atlanta. And I think at that point we started to kind of question ourselves. Like, we started to come into such small fights about like where would we go and eat, like, and stuff like that. We started to fight about the smallest of things. And I think that's like where things started a little bit. And then I think I had also individually some rough periods here and there. And then I don't know, we were sitting and having like some drinks together, talking, and then somehow I got to know that they were planning on replacing me in the team. They were planning on picking up Rain to fill my spot. And I mean, that kind of hurt me a little bit, but I also felt like I understand it, maybe it is time for us to go separate ways. I think I reached out to NIP back then. I think they had.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that actually.
Yeah, but it was also some problems because they were on some vacation together, the whole team. They were on some boat or whatever for like 2 weeks together or something, the organization and the players. So it was pretty bad timing, but like we opened a discussion, and I think they were open for it as well. But then like things started to move slower and slower, and then by the end of that E-League thing, I think. Once again, we had a couple of drinks, and I think I talked to Flasha, which is my best friend at the time and still is.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, I know about this and blah blah, but is this what you want? And is there no way like we can play together at least, because of all people, you are the one I want to play with. And he started to be like, yeah, I don't really think I want this as well, to replace me, that is.
Mm.
And yeah, we discussed a lot back and forth, and we ended up saying like, let's do this together. Then we go to another team together, like we stick together. We reached out to Pronax, thinking like we heard he had started to build his Godsend team and organization. We asked if he would be interested, and he also played with Schneider back in that time,
Yeah.
which was also like one of my first real friends within gaming, and I really wanted to have him on board again, if it was possible. And it was kind of one of those like you want to get back the old friends together kind of thing. But we settled with those four, and then Crims heard that we were doing this, and Crims was also like a good friend to us, and we were really tight and have obviously been since. And he felt kind of betrayed by us that we started to talk about this without including him and all that. And
Right.
suddenly he come to us like, I can come to you guys with a major spot as well. And suddenly we were like, I was supposed to get kicked for rain, and suddenly I had like 3 guys leaving with me, kind of. So it was a pretty weird thing that happened. And like, sure, I regret looking back that I joined Godsend, because it looks bad like on my resume that I left Fnatic. But when I look back as well, like if that wouldn't have happened at the time, I would never have played in Fnatic today, or previous to my benching, because then they would just have replaced me with Rain, and who knows what I would have done, and who knows what the history would have looked like. So of course, with the results in hand, you kind of regret it. But me personally, I can't really regret it too much either, because I wouldn't have been in Fnatic after the period anyways, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, that would have been a crazy sort of change, and probably one that would have led to, the Fnatic Swedish lineup kind of breaking apart anyway. So probably good that you guys went away for a little bit and then came back, just in terms of sometimes it's better the devil you know. I mean, I remember hearing at the time, because obviously, as a journalist, you hear stuff that you guys were having fights like you said there, like over crazy shit. Like, I think one of the stories I heard was someone didn't flush a toilet, which I thought was funny, because obviously you've got a guy called Flusher on the team, and someone was angry over the washing up or something. And it was like real trivial domestic shit.
Yeah, I think we reached like too much success too fast together. That we started to not appreciate the things we had and all that. And yeah, we had plenty of stupid fights, and we ended up like in 2 camps, where it was like Dennis and Olof in one camp, and it was like me, Flasha, Crims in the other camp. And it was just so stupid fights, which I regret a lot.
Have you guys talked about it since?
Yeah. I mean, we did a reunion kind of thing like after 6 months or whatever. And I think I was the guy to reach out, funnily enough, because I was the one who would get kicked anyways. But I was the one who like wrote in our old Facebook Messenger group, and I was like, guys, our shit is not working out. I know your shit is not working out. I regret everything that happened, and we were so stupid back then. Like, is there a way for us to do this again? Like, can we get the band together, kind of? And I think like it went like 5 seconds, and then it was like, I never thought you would write. And then Olaf came, like, and we all were like, yeah, we were so stupid back then. We're gonna do this again. We're gonna fix it. Sadly, we didn't get any good results, I think, sadly. And I think what haunts us the most in that lineup was, I think it was like our first event in Katowice, where we played the Brazilians. I think it was the Immortal guys in like a decider game, if we would go through to Spodek or not. And I think we had like a huge lead in that game, and then we ended up choking the game and losing it and missing out on Spodek. And that game like haunted us for so long in that lineup. Like we lost pretty much all our confidence there when we choked that, and we started to see ourselves kind of chokers, and we had like super bad mentality, I think, after that loss because it was so early with that lineup. So I think if we would have won that game and went to the Spodek, I think that team would have picked up a lot of titles again. But sadly, it went the way it did.
So you said there as well, like, you know, Flush is still your best buddy. So obviously he's out there with a team that keeps changing players. You know, they haven't really settled on their 5 yet. And I'm sad because obviously we're not seeing Flusher play. But we're, you know, Sonny's there as well. I think he's like a sick player that just not everyone's forgot about him. Is there a chance you could go to the Gorillas lineup?
I mean, you should never say never. I think Flusha is a player I would always love to play with, because people don't, sure, you can see that he have bad stats sometimes, whatever, but the work he does for a team is tremendous. And I think you can see that easily when he left our team at the beginning of this year. Like the amount of utility usage and all that he brings to a team that makes the other team have to second guess themselves in many situations. It's so huge, and you can't like put it into paper what it actually does in stats. So of course I would always be open with a reunion with Flusha. I think the two guys I would want to finish my career with, like if I could, it would be Flusha and Crims. And Sun is also actually a player we tried to get a few times to Fnatic during the years. So I would have nothing against playing with him as well. But I think the problem they have is Sergey doesn't want to do anything other than opping. And I think at this point for me, like if I would go down to a team like that, I don't think I should do anything other than finding my comfort zone and finding my groove and do the GW shit all over again. So I think it's very unlikely, but I don't close the door, of course.
What do you feel about the state of Swedish CS at the moment? Because, you know, it seems to be having, I want to say, a little bit of a resurgence. You know, there were a couple of years where all the players I was being told that were going to be the next like Forests and Get Rights and JWs and Flushes and Olafs and Crimses, they didn't quite live up to that billing. You know, you end, and like, this isn't to be mean to them, you know, but I remember, for example, I was having a drink with Get Right, you know, and we were talking about who he rated as a player, and he was telling me Disco Doplin's going to be sick. He's one of the best teammates I played with. They had him as a stand-in at NIP. He played for Fnatic as well for a time, and you know, yet he never seemed to materialize. And you know, he's not alone. There are a bunch of others. Like I want to say Freddie B is another name that got kicked around a bunch. And, you know, but there's a ton. I picked those two guys out, and it probably is Draken, another one. Yeah, you know. So, but now with NIP, you know, kind of their lineup, and obviously Fnatic have brought Brolan through. Do you feel Swedish CS is in like a good place overall?
I think both yes and no. I think what's missing so much right now, sure, you can kind of blame it a lot on COVID as well. But what actually is not existing in Swedish CS right now is that farmer team that has always been Epsilon or Red Reserve or Godsend. Yeah, Lemon Dogs. Like these kind of teams that you need. For example, Brolan, I think if we picked him up straight away, he would never be the player he is today, because you kind of need that period of going into that like semi-elite team for 1 year or so and just grind and get a touch of the game. I mean, Jackinho, for example, I think he would also be needing that a lot to have that period with a team. I mean, I'm not saying he's doing a bad job, but going straight from like Elite Serien, who is like the only league you can play with in Sweden, to Tier 1 is like it's such a huge gap. You don't understand how big of a jump that is. And I think to expect people to do that and deliver it's gonna be hard. So we need those farming teams. But I think like people are doing a good job. There's coming up some more organization and stuff like that. And I think, for example, Young Ninjas have plenty of good prospects, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's in a bad state, but I also think it's like in a better looking state than maybe before. So we'll see. But I think there's quite some really good names, but they're split up too much. Like you have Heap in Dignitas, for example. I think he's the next biggest Swedish thing.
Okay.
But I think he also, I'm not sure if he gets the right role he should have in Dignitas or whatever. And maybe you should like build a team with him and maybe some from Young Ninjas. And like I think there's a potential for a great Swedish team, but it's too split up right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's always been the way. Well, I mean, after fnatic, obviously, we're dominating and winning everything. Obviously, the major, rumor has it, it's going to go ahead still. Fingers crossed that nothing crazy happens between now and then. We should know for sure on the 15th of September. Obviously, it's in Sweden. Are you going to put in a cheeky appearance? Are we likely to see JW, walking around CSGO royalty, bowing to the crowd?
I don't think so. I mean, it would be sadly, I mean, not being there, but I think I would love to be there, like especially playing. But I mean, the way things are right now, I'm mostly gonna focus on bringing myself back, not thinking so much about doing like casting appearances or whatever.
Right.
I think I'll work on myself and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it saddens me a lot to not be able to be there, honestly.
So look, to wrap this up, what does the ideal world look like for you? If anything could happen in the next few weeks, what would be the best outcome for you, do you think?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, the best outcome. Like, give me Flasha, give me Crims. Let's roll back the years again, right? I think.
Who would you have as an IGL?
I think I would have Flash as an IGL.
Okay.
The thing, actually, people missed out on as well when we built the lineup, when like the previous lineup with Flash and Golden, we were supposed to be me, Crims, Flasha, Knock was supposed to be there, but yeah, we couldn't get him, and Brolan, of course, but we couldn't get Knock, and eventually we said like, let's try with Golden and let's try him one more time if he's up for it, because he was on the Cloud9 bench at the time, and he was super up for it. Then I think we went like on a streak, 5 finals in a row or something on LAN, like 5 semifinals at least, and then the COVID came and all that. But yeah, so before we took Golden, it was supposed to be Flasha leading that lineup. So I would probably have Flash as an IGL. I think he's still one of the smartest players CS will ever see. He's kind of stubborn and mess up for himself a lot, but I think he's easily one of the smartest there is. Yeah,
and who would your other 2 players be then? Again, ideal world, contracts don't matter.
I mean, then maybe I would say Heap, because I think he would be the next big thing in Sweden. And I think if I would take a main AWP role, I think he would be a great Olofmeister kind of guy. Whenever I don't feel the op, I can just toss it to him. And then the 5th guy is hard. I mean, since I'm talking Swedish players, I must go Swedish. So maybe there is a guy called, I think it's Svedjehed. He's kind of an upcomer Swedish guy. Played like in Lil Mix, the 4th best Swedish team or whatever it is. I think that 5 players can go really far. And this is like a Swedish lineup, that is. But the international lineup, I mean, then I would go Saivo, Simple. I would get the whole crew and just enjoy the ride,
Yeah, why not? Why not? Everyone talks about roles. I was talking about this the other day. Everyone says, like, you've got to have the right roles. And that's genuinely true. But, like, imagine if you just had, like, Nico, Ziwu, Simple, Device, and then, like, I don't know, whoever else, Rain.
Yeah, I mean, of course it would work.
Yeah.
Like, especially, like, Simple, he can play any role. Saivo can play pretty much any role. So that I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, I will enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Well, look, the ride is at an end. So you have done your time. You have paid your penance to me, Richard Lewis, arbiter of all things esports. So what are you going to be doing over the next weeks? I know you're working on yourself. Are you going to be on a set streaming schedule, anything like that? Where can people check you out and interact with you if they want to?
That's the thing. I want to get on a streaming schedule, but once again, it's so hard to play CS during the day. There's nothing to play. Like you have to wait until FPL wakes up, and that is like around 8 or something, 8 or 9 on the night. So I mean, it's super hard. Which once again, huge win for Valorant. You can load up the stream and you can play whenever you want. But yeah, I'll think about it how I can do it if I can gather some friends during the day and get a stream together. But I would love to at least communicate a bit more to my fans during this period. But
well,
yeah.
you've got the time. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
You've got to make the most of the situation you're in. So look, as always, great to talk. Really appreciate you taking the time. So there you have it. I'm sure people are going to see this and they're going to see you in a new light and wish you well, and no one's going to say anything bad about you. It's all going to be okay. So there you have it, guys. That is the JW experience on the Richard Lewis Show. Go show him some love and make sure you tune into his stream if you get a chance to do so. And of course, we'll be back with another episode. I don't know when, and I don't know who I'll be talking to. I never do, really. But make sure you stick around. Make sure you throw in a like, a subscribe, a follow, whatever it is. And I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, take care.